very much. Okay. So are there people here? Is this your first CAST conference? Just show of hands. Oh, that's brilliant. This is my fourth CAST conference, second time as a speaker, and I must tell you that my life has significantly changed the more number of CAST conferences I've attended. It's because of the kind of people and the interactions. So I'm really happy to have people here where this is the first CAST conference over for them. Now here's what happens. Here's how the conference process works. That they call for papers like 7-8 months before the conference, and we as speakers submit topics, and then it looks like we don't learn anything, and the abstract and the title remains the same for 8 months. How is it possible, right? So here's what happened to me. Ever since I submitted this, title and the topic, a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have evolved in my mind. So I thought I will update my title as well from this. So I'm saying building deep thinking testing tools for exploratory testers, for anyone who tests. Now, I think we as a world are trying to move towards roles where testers are becoming quality advocates and test advocates, where the developers and the product owners and the BAs are also testing, and we are becoming enablers for them to test, or we are becoming coaches for them to test. So I thought it might be a good idea to say that there are a lot of people in the company doing exploratory testing. It's not just the testers who are doing testing. There are a lot of people in the company doing testing. So how about building deep thinking testing tools for anybody who tests, right? Now, should I make an assumption that you're all testers by any chance? Oh, do I? Okay, that's nice. So let's begin with an exercise. I just want to know from you, how would you test this error message? So this is a very popular application back home in India, and it's a multi-billion-dollar company. And just before I came, my wife asked me to purchase something, and then that was like my immigration from home. So I went to the store and I wanted to make an online payment on the mobile app, and I entered this amount 304, which is what I was supposed to pay, and I say pay, and then boom, I get this error message saying error invalid amount. Now, here are a bunch of testers that I have in front of me. So I'd like to ask, how would you test for this error message? How would you test for it? Any thoughts? How would you test for error messages? Is it the first time you're seeing an error message by any chance? No, right? Okay. So, do we have to? Yes, that's right. That's right. So the shopkeeper says, he says the bill is about 304, and I just entered that and say pay, which goes from my wallet. Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. You've begun testing, right? Yes, please. Was this error intended? That's a good question. Was this error intended? No, because I wanted to make the payment, and I thought, boom, it goes from my wallet, because I've done this so many times, and it just happened, and so this wasn't intended. Okay, any more thoughts and questions? Aha, did I try to pay too much? Good question. I believe a lot of shopkeepers would like to be paid more, even, but in this case, no. They said 300. To the same shop, I've paid in few thousands, so a few hundreds should not necessarily matter. But that's a good question. Okay, yes, please. Is it like the payment type? Okay, that's a good question. No, it's not about the payment type. It was a pretty standard, transaction, because I've gone to the same shop hundreds of times, and it was just about, yes, please. Ah, welcome to the tester in the room, right? So yeah, so it doesn't allow me to enter the decimals. It's just like a whole number. But I didn't try 304.00, but I've never done that in the past. So it's always been a whole number, that I've tried to do. Yeah. That's a yes, I think so. Otherwise, I have enough money to get here, so at least I hope I have the 304 rupees. But that's a good question. Oh yeah, that's because it being a billion-dollar company, they've sold the wallet to all of the shopkeepers over there, and that's like the default app that we use, back home. Any more thoughts? Any more thoughts on this? So let me ask you this question. Let's just pause this exercise and let me ask you this question. Is this how you test? Okay. Why are you doing it differently than here? Okay, so, can somebody tell me, how do you really test? When you're testing for error messages, how do you really test at the office? Okay, so, DS is saying the failure mnemonic. Have you heard of the failure mnemonic? Yes or no? Yes or no? No. Oh, okay. So, let's actually go to that. So there's this not so famous guy called Joseph Ben Simon, and what a coincidence! He's actually sitting in over here, and he came up with this mnemonic called failure, where each of those letters in the word failure stands for something which helps you test for test for the error messages. Now, let me ask people who Ben, you know about the failure mnemonic, right? How often have you applied it to the error messages that you've been testing? All the time. Okay. Is it happening in a conscious way or a subconscious way? Okay. Okay, great. So you're saying that there's a combination of tacitness, explicitness, and implicitness, and that's how testers work. So I can understand that. But have you, as a tester, heard any other mnemonic, other than the failure? Okay. Do you know any mnemonics in the testing? Yes or no? Yes. Who said that? Yes. I wanna be able to spot that person. Okay, you said yes. Okay. How consciously have you applied those mnemonics that you've learned? Okay. So something like the Kruspik's temple, it's harder for you to apply. Yeah. Okay. So so just to help you, the little bit of education that I've had in the testing space, I've come across people who have given all sorts of mnemonics, all sorts of models, test models, to help people think in a structured way. For instance, what happened right now was we were thinking random. Hey, right? It was not a structured approach to thinking. It was random. It was impulsive. It was what was coming to your mind. It was what you were sensitive to based on your past experience. This kind of, a random thinking leads to a random learning of the application, right? So that's where these, mnemonics help. But one challenge I've had is that how effectively have we used it? So I've coached a lot of testers to use the failure, mnemonic. Some of them have used it, but a lot of them have not used it. And I kept wondering why. I give you a superpower. I give you the Iron Man suit, and you choose to go and flap your hands to try to fly? Why would you do that? That's a big thing that's been bothering for me. So 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 we come to these conferences. I'm sure you've gone through a lot of learning. How much of this learning can you go back and apply? And why is it that we know so much, but what we can bring to practice is just a minuscule of what we know? If if it's the minuscule of what you can actually bring to practice, why are you even going to learn so much? Why are you even learning so much when so much of what you've already learned, you're not being able to bring it to practice? What's the value of learning more and more and more when when it's becoming harder for you to bring all of your learning to practice? This is a problem that has been bothering me quite a lot. And so, I started to explore what is blocking us. What's blocking us from being able to practice? Okay, for instance, if I were to tell you what failure, mnemonic is, how practical is it going to be able to be for you to go and apply this, at your work? How practical is it going to be? Yeah. Okay. I want to understand what this means. So can you help me what this means? Okay, you don't know. Okay. Oh, okay. Right, right. Okay, so that's one of the aspects, right? And um, each of the questions that you asked when when about what's it testing about the error message that I showed is already covered in the failure mnemonic. So each of the questions that you came up with, is this appropriate? Is this right? Is there a log? What all sorts of questions that you can come up with is already available as a part of the failure mnemonic. So for me, it's that we know so much, but we are not able to bring it to practice. So one thing that I started to explore is that how can we build tools that help people think? So, you said, I don't know. So what if all of what you learned in this conference is translated to a plugin and is given to you, and you can just go and install the plugin on your Chrome, right click and say, I want to implement failure because I'm seeing an error message in front of me, and it starts popping questions, logs, user, impact, analysis, functionality, appropriateness, UI, interface, user risk, user collection, data collection, sysadmin. This way, this way, it's going to help you implement what you've learned in a more practical way, where you can see the value of of this in the projects. So I want to give you a demo of what I've tried to build, so that it you can see what I'm trying to do over there. So let's try to do this. Let's try to take up this exercise. Okay, so here's the error message, and I built a tool. I'm calling this a tool, and I'll tell you why I'm calling this a tool. So it says, okay, this is a form. This looks like a simple form for now, and let's say I say this, and my name is Pradeep. What am I testing? I'm testing the Paytm app error. Error on payment, right? And then I say, okay, next. Oh, hold on. Are you sure? Okay. I just need to connect to. Is there something that I can connect to over here? Okay, that one. Okay. And is there a password that it'll prompt? Cast 19 all caps. Okay, awesome. So back. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I have a coupon. I have friends. I have friends who are helping me. I think that should have been a button over there, huh? Okay. And it's not going over there. Tap, next, tapping over there, nothing is moving. Okay, let me try to do this, which could work. Does it? Oh yeah, it looks like, right? So let's go to this. Okay, stay on the page, stay on the page, stay on the page, stay on the page. Good interruption. Okay. Right, okay, done. And now I say next, and let's see what happens. Okay, so here's some things. Now, it talks about, function. It talks about, and inside function, there are so many questions to ask about. Oh, did the error detection function as expected? And I think somebody asked the question and saying, okay, did the error detection function as expected? And you're giving answers like yes, no, and don't know. And you say, yes, it did. No, it did not. I don't know about this. And then you may switch over to, oh, I don't know the answers for this. And then is it appropriate? Is it timely? Is there a better way to handle these things? And for some of it, you might say, I don't know. And some of it, you might say, but you want to say no. And so this is like a form. This is like a plugin that helps you, having learned failure, implement the failure in a way that you can apply to each of the error messages that you're testing. So now your testing becomes deeper, more holistic, okay? Otherwise it would have been random questions coming up and you might have missed about logs. But the next time you do, you might not miss logs, but you may miss about something else. And this is what I see as a cycle that keeps happening with the testers. So now I'd like to switch over to this and say, when the way I've actually built this tool is once you fill this form, you get an analysis, something like this. So you get an analysis, something like this. Hey, Pradeep, this is the app you tested. These were the total questions, and these many you answered. For this, you said you don't know, and for this, based on you saying you don't know, here are 2 people in your project who knows the answers for this question, and you could go connect with them. It says, I've just taken my colleague's name and say, Isha and Meenakshi can support you to learn those that you marked as don't know. And those are the people. And then I do a further analysis and say, based on your answers, following are the suggestions, which says there could be more errors like this in the app. So if you want to jump up and just report this as the bug that you found, it's saying pause on. There could be a lot of errors like this. So it kind of helps you think a little bit, deeper, before you jump ahead and want to report this bug. The second thing is it says you could dedicate a separate, charter for going deeper on this. So if you look at it, there's an analysis engine also built into it. Now this acts like a tool to help people think. Now I can give this tool to you, and I could ask you to test error messages. And when you go through this, you would have a more holistic thinking approach to testing. And that way, you are not going to miss things. It's not going to be random. It's going to be consistent. And you know whom you can connect to as a part of your, colleagues to learn about actually these things. So this is the kind of the tools that I'm trying to build. And this is what I try to, think about as the deep thinking testing tools for actually people who are going to test. And I also built something about the career decision analysis. Now, one common question that keeps coming to me from a lot of people, probably because I blog, is about career advice, right? I mean, that's one of the most common topics from a lot of testers. So I'm sick and tired of saying the same thing over and over again. So I thought, why not I build a small little tool which takes in a lot of data from the people and actually provides them an analysis very similar to what I showed to you. So here's a career decision analysis, tool, and just as an example, it talks about a lot of different, like the failure, mnemonic. It talks about the tenure. It talks about a lot of other, topics in terms of like your lead, your manager, your line manager, your employer, your motivation, your money, all of these aspects. Because unless you know all of these things, you can't essentially give advice to people. And then what happens as an outcome of that is people get the analysis which is tailored over to them, like this. Okay, so here is one of the tester got it. Says you are at your initial years. The only comparison. So this is my type of analysis. Is now if you are an expert, I can enable you to give your analysis. So there can be Pradeep's version, and there can be your version, and there can be Ben Simo's version. There can be Rob Saab's version. So this way we collect data, we do the analysis, and we are able to present it. And I want to show you what has this been impacting the people. So just to go back to the presentation. Okay, here's what people have really told about this thing where they've used it. They're saying that, okay, look, it was more or less like somebody sitting next to me and giving me advice. And also it's about, hey, I never thought about investing the excess money that I have to hire a few developers to build some tools because I have a lot of ideas, right? So, so this is one example. And here is another example, okay, which says after reading all the content in the PDF, okay, based on my answers, it really helps me to think deeper and motivates me to stick to the learning path. So for me, I've been able to now partially automate some of the standard set of things that I have been helping people with, and then if they want to reach out to me, they come to me for let's say an advanced level or not for the basics, kind of thing. And by creating such a form, by creating such a tool for them to think and self-reflect on the decisions that they are trying to make, I'm helping them think deeper than what they seem to be acknowledging that they've probably not been. So I've been building tools for quite a while, and before I got to this point, I must tell you a whole lot of things that I've done which has failed quite a lot, right? Okay, so I came up with this concept of Twitter-driven exploratory testing, right? And I was so fascinated about it, and I tried building a tool around it, which will give me, like, if I were to be testing eBay, for example, and I want to gather the most common search word and the most common tweeted word of eBay users, and I want to use that as a part of the test data. That's the kind of the thought process that I had, and I built a tool, and I thought this is going to help people, and I gave it to people, but it did not work. The tool worked, but nobody wanted to use this, and I'll tell you why. And here is this. So I learned all these test models, and there are so many test models that can enable you to test, right? And what's some of these? Then I built a tool called the Test Model Picker tool. So based on whatever you're trying to test, it'll show you all the options that you have to test, all the models that you can pick, and based on the model that you pick, it'll ask you to document your test ideas based on the model. Now, I thought this was just the phenomenal thing of my lifetime. I thought I'm doing a great thing in this world, and I gave it to testers, and nobody wanted to use it. I was like, wait a minute. I thought people wanted to discover different ways to test. I thought people wanted a more holistic approach to test. And I gave it to them, and they don't want to use it. They had all sorts of reasons why they didn't want to use it. And why I wanted to build this is I wanted to build something like this. I wanted to build some kind of analytics about how many times these models have been used and by whom within every organization. This way, it will give us a very tactical advantage. You can say, hey, Hillary is here. He is a specialist at the Crucifix Temple implementation. If you have not been able to implement, Hillary is the guy whom you can pair test with, And that's the kind of analytics that I wanted to build. And so I thought, wow, this is going to be fantastic. The whole of the context-driven testing community is going to be wowed by me and things like that. But it was a massive failure. Nobody, even the people who thought I was their employer didn't want to use that. And then I discovered another use case where there are a lot of people struggling to build a pre-app store testing guidelines and the checklist and all of that stuff. So I translated I just like to pause here. Okay, 1 second pause, and I want to tell you this. Every time I say I, it's not me. Okay, there are some real good people doing the work, and I'm just their mouthpiece, right? Okay, so going back to this, I tried building this tool which will act like a checklist where there is a broad coverage, where there's a deep coverage, and it'll act great as a checklist for people who are doing a pre-app store release testing or something like this. And this also got zero adoption. Now, it looks like I've been thinking good things with the good intent, but none of this worked. And one of the things that you may be concerned about is how your time is going when you're actually testing, right? There's so many things that happen. There are meetings, there is some learning, there is some test documentation that you do. You run sessions and things like that. Okay, I thought I would build a self-reflection tool for testers where you show it to people, saying that, hey, this is how your time is actually going away, and then they would alter themselves or they would autocorrect themselves. But I realized that people didn't again want to use this. Look, I've been trying to, for me it was a massive puzzle. I'm trying to help people test better. I'm giving them so many more models. I'm giving them a more holistic approach to testing. I'm building self-reflection tools for them to say that, hey, look, your time is, you're let's say spending a lot of time in the meetings. There's very few charters that you have run. What do you really want to do? All right? And let them make those choices. But then I realized that even this didn't work. Okay, this would have been a cool one. So for me, in hindsight, I realized this, that I was causing a behavior change. So the number one reason why whatever I built didn't just work is because it was causing a behavior change. You're not used to filling up a form when you're testing, right? Yes or no? So if I introduce a form to you, it's a behavior change. Now, unless I am your boss and you don't have any other job options, you may say, oh, okay, I may want to try it out a few times. But what's the motivation really for you to do that? Because it's causing a behavior change. So that's one thing I learned. And then there's another thing. So when I built this beautiful model picker tool, and I didn't coach people in all of those models. I just thought that they would self-learn the way I learned it, and I just put it in front of them. So here's what really happened. When they went to that page and they saw that there's so many models and none of which they know, they felt intimidated by it. And ideally I should have provided some level of a coaching support, which I did not, and that's one of the reasons that it failed. Not enough investment. For us to be able to build anything, we need certain level of a persistence and certain level of an investment. Now, here's what happened for me, that I was intimidated, that I built it so passionately and nobody wanted to use it, so I stopped investing in it. So that's another reason why some of these things have failed. And then, yes, I'm the biggest blocker, because I thought it's just my vision. Right? It's my vision, it's my world. The world is revolving around me, so it should work, right? and so then I realized that, oh my God, I can't continue to take this failure. I have to I have to let go of myself. I have to bring in a different approach. And now I want to share with you that what has happened applying these lessons, right? Here's what I call it as partial success. So given that I learned that if you build something out of your vision and you don't include people in your vision, there is no reason for them to buy in. So the first and foremost thing I started to do is to get the buy-in from people. So here is a simple little thing where there was a customer trying to engage with us, and they said, we are hiring you because we want you as the gatekeeper to tell us if should we ship or not ship. Now we all know, we all have been there, that it's not just an easy thing to say, yeah, you're good to ship, or you're not good to ship. You have a story to tell. You have to say yes but, yes and, no but, no and, right? Okay, this is how you tell stories. So one of the things that we did is to say, we worked with the product owners, we worked with the business analysts, and we worked with the developers to figure out what is business critical for them. What is business critical? What would you decide as go or no go? You tell me that. And then we said about basic flows, we said about corner cages and all of that stuff. Now we all sat together in a room and built a small little tool around it, which would show this on a big screen in front of the whole team. And the most important aspect is we navigated the conversation away from how many test cases will you write to there can be 3,000 test cases in the back end for us to say go, or there might be just 3. How do you care about? As long as we have got your criteria, as long as we have understood your business context, does it really matter how many test cases we have in the back end? So that way we got the conversation over. And why I'm calling it as a partial success is because across several customers, they have liked it. They have liked it, and they're continuing to use it. Even after they stop working with us, they're continuing to use it. For me, that's the true success. They may have said, okay, there could be a budget change and all of that stuff, but they continue to use this because for them, this is a powerful storytelling for them that we may be ready, we may not be ready, we may be ready in these areas, we may not be ready in these areas. And they make a conscious choice. They know the risks that they're actually taking, right? And look at it. From the lessons learned from trying to build the tool picker, we were able to implement something like this, where one of the mistakes that I made previously was to make everything mandatory. Okay, and then I said no. Okay, it's optional. If you want to fill in, you fill in. If you want to use, you use it. So then things changed, and then the coaching support part of it. So we provided a lot of documentation around the mnemonics, and we provided a whole lot of analysis and the necessary coaching and all of that stuff. Okay, which gave people a visibility to say, okay, I don't know, I know. And if somebody says, have you used any methodology or heuristics while writing these test ideas? And if there is a no, if there's a notification that goes to the lead, and the lead goes to the tester and say, how can I help you? So it is driven by the culture of help. If it is driven by the culture of control, okay, then it's not going to work. So we had this awesome thing that one of the junior testers picked up something based on the learning, and she implemented. Mary had a little lamb heuristic, which I was so proud that we were able to create a tool that kind of aided the tacitness of working with smart testers. So and then we started to build an app. If you're testing an Android app, the pain of trying to report bugs. So we built a tool which will record everything that a tester does and report it. So the lessons learned from it is the collaborative building of tools is the way to go forward. And making it a non-mandatory thing. It's like a Fitbit. It's like a Fitbit. The Fitbit can tell you that you have not walked today. That's fine, maybe today, because you're in a conference, you want to be all day over here. But leaving it to you is the way to help you decide, and that's something that we have learned. And to me, for having actually built tools, this is the life cycle that I see, that today I will not go and build the actual software first. I would build a small prototype, take it to the users, and say, give me feedback, and you could give me a whole lot of feedback. I would iterate and produce my prototype too, and then ask further feedback from you. And once the feedback comes at a certain point that yes, this is usable, this is useful, this is the value I've been able to derive, then I go invest in building the actual software. Okay, till then it can be a simple prototype. So our industry, according to me, is dealing with something like you'd have heard of a technical debt. This is what the testing space is actually dealing with, is the ideas to implementation. There are hundreds of ideas. There are beautiful ideas in this industry, but the implementation of them is where we suck big time. So, so for me, I've made that as my mission to clear some part of this debt, and want to invite you to my party. And because it's not just my party, it is everybody's party. And if we don't innovate, if we don't clear this debt, we are going to be dead as an industry. And so me and my colleagues and some people from the community, we are together trying to put all the tools that we have built and launch an app store for testers. Launch an app store for the testers. And the way we want to build is this. When we think about open source, the first thing that comes to the mind is code. Why should open source just be code? Why can't it be your thought process? Can we open source your thought process? Okay, that is the quest I am on, because you have smart ideas, and I want to be able to translate. I want to be able to have some version of Rob Saab living forever. Okay, yeah, that's truly what I want to do. And so I want to invite you to take your ideas to reality. I know it's important for you to share ideas, but ideas, you get people say cool in front of you. There's one thing that I've learned in America is that anything you say, people will say cool, but do they really mean that? I don't know. I don't know yet, right? They say, okay, that's cool. And for me, here's what happened. The first time I had this international call, and every time I heard cool, and but the email that I got is, this tester doesn't understand whatever I said, right? So, so for me, I want to say that your ideas are great. Your ideas are super, but let's build supportive system to your ideas. If you don't build supportive system to your ideas remain ideas, and that's the horrible thing about the ideas. It cannot just remain ideas, right? So, okay, with that, I'm done, and I'm happy to take some of the questions or the challenges, or if you felt any cognitive, dissonance, I would like you to bring that up, and I'll be happy to deal with that as well. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
Green cards, please.
There's supposed to be water somewhere here. Okay, I'll deal with it. Yeah, do you have any? Yes, please. I'm sorry. Oh, there's a facilitator.
So the first part where you showed several questionnaire kind.
Yeah.
So is that success or failure?
It is a success. The first two things I showed before I brought up the slide where I said, now I'm going to talk about failures. Prior to that is a success. There is a concept, and then there is a success. So that's the reason why I showed some of the testimonials from the testers who have used it and who have actually benefited.
So those questions are customizable, or?
Yes, those questions are customizable. So I want you to think about it just like open source. You can download this whole thing, And oh, okay, thank you very much. Yeah, right. Um, um, so you can download this whole thing. You can customize the questions. You can also alter your kind of analysis, and that's the reason why I said there can be a Rob Sab analysis, there can be a Pradeep analysis. Maybe Pradeep is good at career advice than Rob Sab, but Rob Sab is way greater than Pradeep on the test design part of it. So people can actually pick and choose whose analysis they want to take, and that way we all can learn. We all can learn together. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm more interested in this take your ideas to reality. So, how is that going to work out?
So what's as I mentioned, we are putting together a bunch of tools. So I've been doing talks about testing tools in a lot of organizations, and after my talk, usually people come up and say, "I have built this tool." Like for instance, okay, Ben Simon, who's has built a Jira. So he has built a plugin which will convert the whole of the Jira tickets and whatever has happened in a project and a team into a mind map, right? And he is kind of secretly implemented it in the organization that he's working with. Now I'm hoping that he would share it with the world. You can take it, you can customize it to your project, and that way you will be able to benefit from what he has done, and you can reshare that, just like open source. You can reshare it, and he would get a notification saying that she has made this change, and these are the 3 things that she has added, so that he can re-implement it back in the organization. So that's the way we are trying to remove this the debt of idea to reality.
So, if we tell, I was under a different impression that we give you a concept or idea and you implement it.
Absolutely, that is also possible. So we are having a team of people. So here is what we are thinking about the App Store. So let me ask you this question: how many of you here know to code? Okay. Now, so for those of you who don't know to code, you have ideas, you have expertise, you are aware of problems. What if I can pair you up with somebody who knows how to code and is a tester, and you both together can build a tool? So that is another way that we can help build tools. We can take an idea to reality, irrespective of whether we know to code or we don't know to code. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation. That's the first thing. Pradeep, you are passionate, right, about the test models, heuristics, and we could see the number of them on your first failed tool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what are your tips to get your team on the same level of being passionate as you are? Because apparently that was that gap, right?
Yeah.
That people will not on the same page as you are. So I know that you created the like less sophisticated tool, like
Yeah.
the Mary had a little lamb, but still, I think there's some missing part. How to encourage people to learn by themselves and to get on your level.
Okay, great. So one of the largest focus I've had is to create leaders who are helpful. So if you have, like, let's say 3 passionate testers in your whole company, those 3 testers become champions to coach and consult other testers in the team. So if they get a notification, like the way I mentioned, if they get a notification saying that, hey, this tester marked this as I don't know, and then they get a notification, and I come to you, and assuming I'm one of them, and I come to you and say, hey, how can I help you? I've been good at implementing these things, and I would like to see you succeed in this. So let's try to find a time to help you succeed, right? I think in many organizations they use this as a control metric. So when you use it as a control metric against people, you're blocking people from saying I don't know. But I think that's where the culture the culture of the company matters actually quite a lot. That if you're a leader, you have to be helpful, you have to be supportive, to people. And when you bring in that kind of a culture, you will be increasing the number of people who are actually passionate. And then, to say, hey, I've helped you, I've got a notification from, Dhanashekhar, why don't you go and help? And you would go and you would try to mimic, you would try to, tacitly copy the way I did it. You'd go to Dhanashekhar and say, I heard that, you marked this as I don't know. I just recently learned. Can we pair test? And so that I can share my learning with you and I can also help you succeed. All right. So in a way, what you're doing is you're creating some kind of a social network around the mnemonics people want to implement within a company. All right.
So very quick follow-up. When this form has to be filled, is it after the project by your testers? When they need to do this?
Okay, let me. I'm glad you helped me made me remember this. So from the lessons learned, what I've realized is if you're introducing a form for people to fill in, their motivation level is 0. Whether it's before, during, or after. It's like the pills. You don't want to take it, right? So here's what I've done. There is a staged way, there is a gamification way of building this form. You may have 25 questions you want to ask people, but don't ask the 25 questions. Ask one question. Get them used to it. If it's like 1 minute, nobody is going to complain about, this is wasting my time. So first is about getting that 1 minute in a consistent way. After you get the 1 minute in a consistent way, then you add another question. And here's what I've identified. After the 4th question, I've added the 5th question. They don't even notice that there was a new question. They just think that it's a part of what they've been doing, right? So that is the way to iteratively build this, and not just about putting everything up on the table and say, now you fill it, I'll help you. In some cases it is true, but not in all cases. For example, that the career decision tool that I was talking about, in that people have to provide the whole information. And the context of that is people are willing to provide more information. But when they're testing, there is a pressure, because most of the people who would have actually filled the form of the career analysis, they would have done it from home on a relaxed Saturday or on a Friday evening when they have decided they no longer want to work with the manager, right? So in some context it might work, but in most contexts I would take it iteratively. I would make it very slow progress to build. Yeah. Okay, anything else that I can help you with? Yes. Oh, okay. I'm getting used to this. Sorry.
I think I'm going to slightly argue with you right now. I don't particularly like arguing, but I'm going to still do that. Your idea of having a forum where people tell that they don't know something, isn't that culture kind of really weird, where people have to fill in a form to say they don't know something so that other people would come and help them, instead of teaching them the basic thing of saying, just speak up when you don't know something, and then teaching others kind of like, offering help? Like, why do you need to make it a form? Why is everything about a tool when it's about really, it sounds to me like you're talking about basic human decency and empathy. Like, am I hearing something completely different than what you're trying to say?
Okay, yes. So here's what I think. The I don't know can be replaced with I need help. I need support. I have a question. I need additional information. It is the way you want to alter it. It is the way you want to facilitate. So for me, my goal is to help people learn as they are, testing iteratively. So for me, I'm trying to set up help systems to people. And what better way, I thought, is, than to say, I don't know. is a powerful thing to say. We all acknowledge it. But this will only work if there is a culture. If there's a culture in the organization set to support people saying, I don't know. And most of the cultures are against people saying, I don't know. Right? So, so that's the reason even why you're asking this question.
So, if I say I don't know failure, but I find all the relevant bugs in your first example,
Yeah.
why is it a problem that I don't know failure?
Oh, okay. That's a very good question. If you have found all the relevant, bugs, and when actually people come to you and you show that, to them, you become their go-to person. So, at least actually that way, they have discovered, this. And here's the second thing. No matter how great a tester you are certainly not going to be able to do it the same way again and again. You are going to miss things. Maybe in this release, you have caught the bugs that you wanted to catch. But in the next release, you know what? Including Ben Simo, it's hard for him to go through everything every time. He might miss a few questions that he has actually documented in the past. So that is how this acts as a reminder system. And that's also the reason why I said, if we make it like mandatory, okay, then that's a problem. It's optional. It's like a Fitbit. You can use it as a guidance tool, or you can ignore it completely and you can use it like a watch. It's completely left to you. The Fitbit is not going to say, okay, you are doing wrong. It just says, this is the analytics. Okay, this is the metrics. It's up to you of how you want to take it. Okay?
So we got 2 more yellow cards on the same thread. If it's no green cards, I will continue with this thread. So to Ben.
And so I also had some of the same concerns, and Pradeep and I have talked about the telling someone else that this person may need help. But I think that's really secondary to what Pradeep has showed me in the prototype, and that's that I think the primary thing is to help enable people to use cognitive aids that were intended to help enable them to do better testing. So the initial in the prototype he showed me is it goes through and it helps you walk through and apply the heuristic or whatever it may be, or with the career advice, help you think about things. And then the automated decision rules on the back end give the person using it in an email some feedback. Yeah. And then if it's added there, it may give them people they can go to, that people who have volunteered that say, I can help in this particular area. So at least as I see it, if the primary thing is to provide you personal feedback like a Fitbit does, it doesn't tell you what to do, but it hopefully motivates you to walk more, to do whatever your personal goals are. And I think if it's primarily that, there's value. Yeah. In the telling other people, I think if you are in a culture that people are trying to help, if you have test leads that take on kind of a role of a coach and help rather than I'm going to use it to control, and I see, she understands this and he doesn't, therefore he's not, I'm going to somehow punish him. I think that with this sort of tool, you need to be very aware of what the culture is and how these things will be used. Yes. As you said, the coaching is very important. Yes. But if I understand, the primary thing is to give individuals, help enable them to apply these cognitive aids and to give them feedback for themselves first. Yeah. And the rest is secondary.
Yeah, and I also think that it may not necessarily mean somebody comes and helps them. There could be a video, like for instance, let's say Ben has done a talk of how he implemented failure for some of the error messages, and a video link could be sent to them saying, if you need help on this, here's a video link. You can actually go through it and then you can actually learn. So that way it's less intrusive to people, and that way it's only suggestive. Hi.
I was just confused on the wording you used, and like what the context is. You mentioned like you want the testers to be consistent and test consistently. It's like And then are they like all brand new testers that you're trying to skill to learn a new like process or to learn something new?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like seems like you're trying to build human automation. So like you want everyone to be doing the same things over and over and over by filling in a form, versus like what I'd actually want is all my testers to actually think very differently and like test in all different patterns so that I get more coverage.
Cool. That's a very good question. So, okay, here's what happens in the ground. Even if you give them a set of test cases, people are going to do it, differently. It's not going to be done in the same way. The whole idea of heuristic is to say is to help you, is to put an idea in your mind, right? And when we talk about testing, when we talk about good testing, we're essentially talking about test coverage. And if you have a team, they certainly are going to be thinking different. Okay, people can look at the same screen and can find two different bugs that was not visible to one another, and this always happens. So humans by nature bring in this difference, because they're different from others, and they have different biases and all of that stuff. But through this approach, I'm helping them think deeper. So for instance, here is how deep you can go about testing error messages. Now, I know a lot of even experienced folks are surprised that they could do so much of testing around just an error message. There's so many beautiful questions that they can ask. Some of it may not be relevant all the time, but they can skip that and they can say no. But you know what? Let's say there's a question about sysadmin. Maybe you have not interacted with sysadmin and your colleague has interacted with sysadmin, and the sysadmin says these kind of errors are important for me. You might mark it as no, there's no problem. That tester is certainly going to say yes, there's a problem. So that way, this helps you build a cognitive structure. This helps you implement the cognitive structure and improve your test coverage, and it doesn't necessarily block a person's style or a thought process. And if they have a thought beyond this, then they can contribute to this and say, hey, here is something that that I think is actually missing in this. Or you can scale it down and say, instead of 34 questions, I can have just 7 questions that matter the most for me, right? So that way you're trying to not make it prescriptive. You're trying to give people enough pointers to think about. You're not forcing them to think about it. You're just giving them pointers to think about. Yeah, and the form that you saw is a part of prototype. It's not the real tool yet. There are a few other things which I showed was a proper tool, like the mobile app. What's the testing part of it? Okay, that's a proper tool. We have done some iterations. We have done some prototypes before we try to build it as a tool. So that's a journey, which is also what I shared. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Pradeep. So with that, we come to the end of the session. Thanks for your time. Thanks,
okay,
Pradeep.
thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.